Well, hi there and welcome to Bella's Vistas. This is going to be a repair video today. I had a leaky axle bearing in the van. We changed the bearings and seals a year or so ago, but the left side was leaking because there were some marks on the axle shaft that we didn't think would matter very much. It mattered. So here I ordered a new axle. The axle came with the bearings, the seal, the wheel nuts, and the studs to put it all together. Plus the gasket for the back of the differential, which I had bought one and I got to take that back and get my $15.80 back. I was happy about that anyway. Taking the wheel nuts off here before I jack the van up. Yeah, these are on pretty tight. So I'm jacking the van up now. I'm going to put some safety stands under there. And just when I was jacking it up, I thought, wait a minute, I better block the front wheels because it's going to be up pretty high. So I got some bricks and I went and did that. It's a pretty heavy van. It's hard to lift up. Here I'm blocking the wheels. I dropped it down again and then I went and put the bricks under the wheels so it wouldn't roll forward at all. Because there's nothing holding it. There's no emergency brakes on the front or anything. So just the angle and everything. So I jacked it up and I put the axle stands underneath. Mary was shooting video and everything while I was doing this. So that's how I blocked it up. The wheels are off the ground pretty well. Now I got to take the jack out because that's where I'm going to be working in there. I used the second level on the jack stands. Putting the pan underneath because I'm going to drain the differential. That's going to be one of the first things to do. Taking a wire brush, I'm going to get under there and clean as much of the dirt off as I can there. Then I'll spray it down with some cleaner, some brake cleaner. Pulling the wheels off now. The wheel has to come off first. Just this side has to come off. I'm not doing the other side. The other side didn't leak, amazingly enough. So, well, I think the axle was in fine shape on the other side. Should have replaced the axle right off when we had it open, but didn't happen. You can see all the brake shoes are contaminated with oil. So I'm washing them off with brake clean, which is really expensive to buy now. I can't believe how expensive brake clean is getting. Apparently all aerosol sprays are going to be really expensive next year too. It's going to go up even more. So you see a lot of oil dripping off there. So now I'm opening up the differential pod. That's what I have to do, is take the clip that holds the axle in. So I'm pulling these all off. I think they were 1/2 inch. I'm not sure. I thought they were 9/16, but I'm pretty sure they were 1/2 inch bolts. Pull them all out. Now the oil's draining out. You can see that. I'm catching it in my pan there. This is heavyweight oil. It's 75/90 synthetic oil. So I'm just draining it out right now. I got pretty dirty doing this job. You do get dirty working on the ground like this. Tried to keep wiping my hands off on rags and that, but wow. Okay, so you can see the differential pod is open now. The gears are in there. Now in the middle of the differential there's a rod or a bearing shaft that goes through the two gears, the two planetary gears, and I have to remove a lock nut that lets that free and then pull that pin out, and when the pin is free I can remove the C-clip that holds the axles in place. It's a pretty substantial gear in here. I'm just turning it around so I can pull the pin. That's the bolt that locks the pin in place. You see the pin is right in the middle there. So that bolt has to come out and then the pin will be free to move. And there's two flats on either side of that, so that's where the axles are. So I'm pulling that out now. Had to take my gloves off because it's hard to do anything with gloves on sometimes. Now with that pin out, I can push the axle in a little bit and remove the clip that holds it in. See the pin moving out there? I pulled the pin out, and there's a C in there, like a C clip kind of thing. It doesn't clip on, it just slides in and holds the axle in place up against the gear there. I think it's a 31 tooth spline on these axles. I'm used to working on Volvos, and this truck is sure a lot heavier than anything I ever did on a Volvo. Now I'm getting that clip out. It's giving me a little more trouble than I'd like. Well, what doesn't, I guess, eh? With the clip out, I can just pull the axle right out. The clip just popped out. There it is. See? It's like a semicircle kind of thing. Then I can just push the axle out. Gonna wipe my hands off. That'll be a real treat. Now we're on the outside again. The brakes are dripping dry from all the brake clean I used. Now I'm pulling the axle out. And that's the wear part there. It was black marks on there. You can see the inside of the brake drum where it was dirty from the grease. There you can see the wear marks on the axle shaft. I could feel the marks with my fingernail. That's sort of the test if it's going to be a problem or not. There's the new axle. I'm just measuring it up because I'm always looking for something to go wrong. There I'm pulling the oil seal out. So I got the seal out. Now maybe I could have used that same bearing over again, but I didn't want to chance it, and I got a new one. A friend of mine loaned me this bearing puller that I thought was just a wonderful tool, and I thought it was going to make it real easy. But it didn't. I spent 1 full hour pounding with this thing, and I didn't know what to do. So I'm hammering away at this. It's not budging anything. It just won't budge it at all. Everything was so hard to turn on there. We thought it was just rusty on the threads, but I think there's mechanical damage to those threads from being hammered on so many times. Oh, I just pulled out one of the roller bearings. So the bearing started coming to pieces on me here. That's not what I wanted to happen. And I just keep trying, and I'm trying to figure out, what am I going to do? Am I going to have this towed into a garage? Am I going to have to get somebody to come out and help me? What am I going to do? I'm thinking about every possibility. Who can I call? What can I do? Then I came up with a bright idea. This tool is not working. I'm trying so hard for an hour. I was exhausted from hammering on that bearing. I mean, I really was. But it just would not move. I pulled out all the rollers in desperation. I thought, I don't know why I thought that might help, but I thought it might. I thought I could catch on the outer lip of the bearing, but nothing worked. So anyway, I'm trying to pull the roller bearings out now. Get my little screwdriver and pry the race holder out. And I'm trying and trying and trying. Honestly, a full hour of this, and wow, I really had enough. And the bearing, it didn't move a millimeter, nothing, you know, I couldn't budge it at all. Now I got the race just about out. There, oh, now I got it, eh? So the race is out now, broken there. So I get out all the rollers I can by hand, then I'm going to go get my magnet. and check to make sure that there's nothing left inside there. You sure don't want any pieces rolling around in there, getting tied up in the gears and jamming. Sometimes I drive on the Dempster Highway, or I go into places where I've seen people broken down for 6 weeks waiting for bearings to come in for their wheels. In Inuvik and such places in the far north. I don't want to wind up like that, because a lot of times I'm really far from civilization. Now everybody's really helpful in Alaska and everywhere, but still it's hard to get parts, and you don't want something like that to happen. So I want things in as good a shape as possible. Here I am futilely pounding away on this bearing again, and my arm is really getting sore. What do? I go to Canadian Tire and get the best parts I can get, the best tools. They've got a tool loaner program there. I went in and loaned out the slide hammer and the bearing puller kit. What a difference this made. Just watch this. This piece here goes inside the bearing, then you tighten the outer ring, and the bearing's held there nicely. You thread this slide hammer on, and there's got incredibly fine thread on the slide hammer, really fine. Look at this, watch. 8 pops. 8 pops and the bearing was out, and I wasn't hitting it real hard. 8 whacks and the bearing is out. Like minutes, absolutely minutes. And I was already exhausted. It took an hour of pounding on that till I gave up. And by the time I left the job site, went to Canadian Tire and got the tools and came back, 1 hour was gone. So I spent 2 hours wasted on this job because of trying to use a tool that wasn't right. And while I rented the puller, I thought, might as well get the bearing and seal driver too, because when you got the seal driver and the bearing driver, things are going to go in easier. I cleaned the inside of the hub there. Here I am putting the driver together at the right size for the bearing that I'm using. I just matched it up. There's a whole series of them. And I put the bearing in there. And of course I'm always thinking, oh, something's not going to be the right size. It won't be right. Now I'm tapping it in with my hammer. Now you have to make sure that it goes in nice and straight. You don't want that to go in crooked and be ruined. This thing was brand new. The bearing and seal driver had never been used. It was my first time using, or I was the first one to use it. Now I'm lining the seal up in place, greasing it a little bit inside and outside, putting the driver up against the seal. Just tap it in. And you have to sort of adjust where you're tapping it to keep it moving in evenly. You pretty well know when you hit bottom. It just feels different. Okay, we're in place. What a nice set, eh? Brand new.
Really
the guys were so nice to me at Canadian Tire, too. Now what I'm going to do is lube that up pretty good in there. Don't want anything going wrong here. Put some oil on the rubber, oil on all the bearings. Now I'm sliding the shaft in, being careful not to hurt the bearing. Don't worry, I'm not going to forget to oil the hub. I mean the axle. Tried to keep the oil off the hub. Now I've got some oil on the bearing and on the shaft. Slides in perfectly. Wow. Now a little problem. I've never done this before by myself, and the gears dropped out of place, and I had to figure out how to put them in. I thought I'll phone somebody, but I thought they'll just laugh at me. How many ways can there be for this to go together? And when I figured it out, there was only one way. Put it together, and I got it together. Put the locking bolt in. Now I'm putting a little bit of grease on the seal. You can see I've pretty well given up on wearing gloves now. Desperation. So now I'm putting the cover on. I cleaned that very well with a little putty knife that I've had with me for many, many years. Probably from my dad's garage when he had the super test station on Duke Street. Some of these tools are from him. Some of the snap-on ones were his, but they've been replaced by the friendly man on the snap-on truck. Really love this one. From the Ferret set, the 3/8 drive speed wrench. This is from the days before electric impacts. There were air impacts, but not everybody had them. They were kind of a rich man's tool back then. From my position, they still are. I'm still doing things by hand. Now I'm threading the nuts onto the new studs. I'm going to pull them into the hub. Now I put the emergency brake on here to hold the other wheel so that I could put the van in park and then be able to tighten those nuts in. Now I'm putting the oil in. I'm filling up the differential case with 3 quarts of fine 75-90 synthetic oil that I picked up. Got a good deal on that. Now I'm going to drop it down so it's on the low a little fast there, Michael. Pull the jack out. You can see I left the light underneath because I'm going to crawl under there and top it up. Got the axle fixed. The leak is stopped. The next thing we're going to do is going to have to install this diesel tank. I'm going to put that in right here this way. That's going to go back in there. I'll have to remove the fire extinguisher. And then we're going to install this little diesel heater that I got. It's got some dirty fingerprints on because a friend of mine tried to put it in his van, couldn't get it to work. So I'm going to put it in. My son Ted and I are going to do that probably tomorrow. Thanks for visiting Bella's Vistas. Bye now.